I hereby call to order this meeting of the Triton Regional School Committee on January 20th, 2026 at 6 p.m. I'm Linda Lukowski, Chair of the School Committee. I want to welcome everybody here tonight. A reminder that this meeting is being audio and video recorded. I'm going to read our vision statement. We are a community of learners known for unwavering commitment to meeting the needs of all students. Through the adoption of best practices and our active partnership with families in the wider community who are united in supporting the development of engaged, successful, responsible, resilient learners, students will be well prepared to be ethical, empathetic, and contributing citizens. Can we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? The next is oral communications from the public. Members of the public may address the committee for up to 3 minutes, longer with the discussion permission of the chairperson. The committee will not engage in a discussion on topics raised during public comment, but may choose to add the topic to a future agenda. This agenda segment will be limited to 15 minutes. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the committee? Seeing none. We'll move on to the school improvement plans and FY27 budget proposals, and I'll give it to Brian.
Okay, so here we are again. January came quick. Feels like we just started the school year. Tonight you have the 3 elementary principals here, some with some visitors, some sidekicks, to present their school improvement plans and their budgets. This is, as a reminder, this is a return to a process that was in place many years ago where school improvements were presented alongside the budgets so that the school improvement plans reflect goals for the upcoming school year, so 6 months from now or 9 months from now, really. And then the budget requests align with those priorities. Obviously, there isn't a perfect correlation between every request and the school improvement plans, but in general, the school improvement plans lay out the goals, and then the budgets are the required funds in order to do that. So we have the 3 elementaries presenting tonight. Normally, we go in perfect alphabetical order, Newbury, Rowley, Salisbury, but since we always give deference to the newest principal who hasn't heard this yet, and so we're going to put Patty back at the end of the line and start with Nicole in Pine Grove. So if you want to come up. But just to give some context, we've been talking about the budget. I feel like we've been talking about this budget process, or I should say this budget year, for a while now, seeing it on the horizon and knowing it was going to be a challenging year. For all intent and purposes, if you look at night 3, Thursday night's district-wide costs, you can see, right, that is absolutely playing out. It is going to be a very challenging year. Regardless, what we have historically done is request that the principals come and share with you directly as the school committee, as well as the public as a whole, to have a sense of what the needs are. So this is, we've gone back and forth in recent years as budgets have been tougher, because the reality is it will be hard to do anything new, given the overall financial landscape, if you will, and particularly some of the larger increases that we'll be facing and dealing with. But nonetheless, I think it's important that you hear directly from the principals, as you have in the past, to hear what the priorities are, to hear the celebrations in the areas of focus through the school improvement plan, and then to hear the budget and the priorities that have been developed at each school, where they have an opportunity to say what's important and needed for their school. So I don't want this to feel like a fruitless exercise, because it's important that we have these discussions, but I also wanted to set the context, because certainly the conversations we've been having as a leadership team about the reality of what the next couple months will look like as we try and settle out a budget. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Nicole Perrier, principal of Pine Grove School.
Is it already on? Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here tonight. I have Liz Butler with me. She's a first grade teacher, but she also serves on our school council. So she came to sit alongside me. She's a great support system. So thank you, Liz. And
Sorry
if
to
you want-
refer to you as a sidekick, Liz.
What's that?
I said sorry to refer to you as a sidekick earlier.
She is a little
That's all
sidekick. Yes. Okay, I'm presenting the Pine Grove School Improvement Plan on behalf of the Pine Grove School Council as well as the Pine Grove School community. I'm going to begin summarizing our progress toward the 2024-2025 goals, and then I'm going to shift to the 2026 to the 2029 goals, explaining why we chose them and how they are directly connected to what we've learned over the last couple of years. Before I begin, I do want to note one small error in the document that I discovered today. On page 5, the heading references the 2023-2024 goals, and it should read 2024-2025 goals. I just wanted to clarify that before jumping into the school improvement plan. So I'm going to start on page 5, progress toward our mathematics goal. During the year, Pine Grove made intentional school-wide efforts to strengthen mathematics instruction with a focus on a number sense, student growth, and instructional alignment. This work was grounded in consistency and collaboration. A key driver of this progress was our use of regular data hours. Grade level teams consistently analyzed student performance using screeners, classroom assessments, and growth data. These conversations focused on how students were thinking, not just what they got right or what the students got wrong, and resulted in targeted instructional adjustments. Some of the intentional practice that supported this work along the way were targeted early numeracy instruction in kindergarten and grade 1, guided by universal screening data, collaborative action planning during data hours for students performing below, at, and above grade level, daily protected geometry instruction across grade levels, supported by shared routines, visual models, and consistent language, spiral review and reinforcement of key skills, allowing students to revisit and strengthen understanding over time. We also continued our co-teaching and flexible grouping in math classrooms to provide targeting support. Ongoing collaboration with the math instructional team, which supported lesson planning, identified priority skills for Pine Grove, and modeled instructional strategies. Regular use of the district-wide UPS check approach to strengthen problem solving and make student thinking visible. The consistent use of Math in Focus as the Tier 1 resource, and then primary math used selectively for Tier 2 and special education support, and also provided opportunities for enrichment through the Math Olympiads and the Continental Math Leagues. Continuous support from our math specialists, including co-teaching, planning support, and professional learning. As a result of this work, students demonstrated meaningful growth across grade levels. Grades 2 and grade 6 met the school-wide growth goal, with more than 75% of students demonstrating typical or stretch growth. Grades 3, 4, and 5 showed notable gains from mid-year to the end-of-year assessments. In kindergarten and grade 1, students made measurable growth in early numeracy skills. While end-of-the-year proficiency targets were not fully met, the data provided important insight into where conceptual understanding needs to be strengthened now. One clear and sustained strength was our geometry. Because instructional time was protected and routines were consistent, geometry remained a school-wide strength, showing that the power of focused, sustained instructional effort works. Taken together, this work demonstrates that Pine Grove has strong math instructional systems in place, but also noting and identifying where growth needs to become more consistent and durable. These insights directly informed the next math goal, which I'll share with you in a little bit. I'm now going to move on to the progress with our ELA goal. This is on page 7 and page 8. Across the 2024-2025 school years, Pine Grove continued to strengthen a comprehensive multi-tiered literacy system, grounded in data-informed instruction and strong Tier 1 practices, supported by Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions. In kindergarten and grade 1, teachers used regular review of DIBELS data to guide instruction in foundational literacy skills. The implementation of our Foundation Stations, aligned to the Foundations program, provided explicit phonics instruction through flexible groupings. This work was supported by all intentionally designed master schedule that allowed for an all-hands-on-deck approach to support all of our students. Classroom teachers, special education teachers, English language learner teachers, our literacy specialist, and the reading interventionist collaborated within co-teaching models. As a result, more than 80% of kindergarten and grade 1 students achieved DIBELS composite scores in the core range by the spring of 2025. In grades 2 and 3, we had a continued emphasis, which was placed on oral reading fluency and decoding. Grade 3 met the benchmark of 80% of students in the core range on DIBELS oral reading fluency. Grade 2 showed growth, but did not fully meet the benchmark, and instructional adjustments were made in response to the analysis of the assessment transitions in the students' needs. In grades 4 through 6, small daily group reading became non-negotiable across our classrooms. This ensured consistent access to differentiated instruction and supported Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions as well. This was done through flexible grouping and push-in services. Growth data from iReady showed variability across the cohorts, which is expected as texts become more complex, but comprehension remained a consistent strength. We also implemented an interactive read aloud in grade 6. Here is the most important takeaway from our ELA data across multiple years. Across MCAS results, Pine Grove students consistently perform well in comprehension-based standards, character analysis, inferencing, vocabulary, and context-paired passages in text structure. These are deep comprehension skills for a student to have. Because these systems are strong, we were able to dig even deeper this time. When the ELA instructional team, as well as administration and classroom teachers, analyzed student writing samples across grades, a clear pattern began to emerge. Students often know the answer, they try to understand the text, they can talk about their thinking, but translating that thinking into organized, sustained, clear writing is where we are seeing inconsistency at Pine Grove. That insight, grounded in multiple years of data and classroom evidence, directly shaped our new ELA goal this time. I'm now going to move on to the progress on page 9, which will summarize our progress on social emotional learning. Goal 3 was met. During the 2024-25 school year, Pine Grove strengthened social emotional well-being through a relationship-centered support system. Office referrals decreased from 86 in 2023 to 2024 school year to 56 in 2024-2025. This represents a 35% reduction, far exceeding our 10% reduction of our original goal. The improvement was driven by proactive, consistent practices and teamwork. A key strategy was continued of the development of our Roots to Wings program, which has created meaningful mentorships across all of our grade levels and has strengthened connection, leadership, and belonging. PBIS Pride lessons, consistent expectations, and school-wide assembly reinforce shared values. We have 2 new therapy dogs, Bogey and Miley. The 6th grade bus ambassador program, where 6th graders took leadership roles as mentors on the buses, meeting once a month but communicating daily with administration. The ISED committee, invested in student social emotional development committee, ISED, guided SEL programming to ensure students felt safe, loved, confident, and supported. Student reflections gathered through our Roots to Wings activities indicated increased feelings of connection, belonging, reinforcing the importance of relationship work. This process gave us confidence that when we invest in relationships for our students and staff, the students are going to climb mountains and they're going to thrive. And that's the progress of the goals. I'm now going to, pages 10 and 11 include the data tables that support the trends that I've summarized in my progress. I'm not going to review those in detail tonight, but they do ground the decisions that you're about to hear in our new goals. I'd like to start tonight by sharing our first school improvement goal, which is our ELA goal. As I move through this section, I'm going to shift us from reflecting in the past progress to connecting and looking ahead to the 2026 to the 2029 goals for Pine Grove School. For each goal, I want to explain why we chose it, the data, and what the research told us. And then I want to walk through the action steps that will guide the work. I'm going to jump ahead to page 14 I'm skipping the overview of the goals because I'm going to talk about them, and I don't feel like we need to do it twice. So I'm on page 14, our ELA goal. Our ELA goal. By the end of the 2028-2029 school year, Pine Grove School will demonstrate improved writing outcomes across pre-K through grade 6. In grades 3 through 6, this means increasing the percentage of students meeting or exceeding expectations on MCAS ELA writing-related items, with a focus on organization of ideas, writing stamina, and the use of evidence when responding to text-based prompts. In pre-K through 2, students are going to demonstrate measurable growth in foundational writing skills, including sustained writing, organization of ideas using pictures and words, and responding to prompts and adding details. Progress will be measured through common grade-level writing rubrics, district writing prompts, and writing samples. This goal reflects thoughtful reflection, and it also reflects multiple years of data that we just discovered. As we began this process, we were careful not to look at just 1 year of data or one assessment. Instead, this time, we reviewed 4 years of data. 4 years of data across grades, looking into patterns over time. At Pine Grove, we wanted to understand what was consistently showing up for our students as they moved through Pine Grove in not just one group, one cohort, or one snapshot or moment. What we saw was reassuring and clarifying at the same time. Guess what? Pine Grove students can read. They understand the text. Over the past 3 years, Pine Grove's ELA performance in grade 3 through 6 has steadily increased, and each year we have outperformed the state average. That tells the literacy systems that we've built around phonics, fluency, comprehension, vocabulary at Pine Grove in the district are working. Because those systems are strong, we were able to dig deeper and ask the next question. Well, how well are the students able to express their thinking in writing? Across multiple years, a clear pattern has emerged. Writing outcomes are less consistent than reading outcomes. Students often know the answer, understand the text, and can talk about their thinking. But translating that thinking into organized, sustained, clear writing is where we see variability. Some cohorts are showing growth 1 year, and then they're dipping the next year. That pattern shows up across a lot of our grade levels, which tells us this. This is not a 1-year issue and not a one-teacher issue. This is a system-level opportunity for us to take. One way we've described this internally is through the analogy of building a house. Our reading work we've done has helped us pour a strong foundation. We see that foundation in consistently strong performance in comprehension-based areas like character analysis, inferencing, vocabulary, and context, and paired with passages. The structure is there, but writing is where the students are being asked to build upwards. They now need to connect their ideas, explain their thinking, and show how everything fits together. If those smaller pieces aren't strong enough, the structure above is going to wobble, even when the foundation is solid in their reading skills. Rather than trying to fix everything about writing at once, we have made a deliberate decision to start where writing actually begins, with thinking, with sentences, and with confidence. That decision was grounded in both our data and our research. I'm now going to move to the action steps for our ELA goal on page 15, 16, and 17. The first action step is strengthening sacred writing to build stamina. Sacred writing is the foundation of this work. One of the consistent patterns that we see in writing data is low stamina. Students' responses are often short, they're underdeveloped, and they're incomplete, especially on extended writing tasks. Sacred writing gives students protected time to write without stopping and worrying about getting it perfect. The focus is on volume, comfort, and confidence. They don't need to worry about spelling, they don't need to worry about grammar, and every student at Pine Grove School writes for 5 to 7 minutes daily. Over time, we expect to see longer writing, greater independence, and more complete responses. Stamina does not develop by accident. Sacred writing is how we pour the concrete for our house. The second action step is administering and analyzing district writing prompts. These prompts will allow us to look at writing growth multiple times per year, not just on MCAS. By using common rubrics and looking at student work together, grade level teams can track progress in an idea development, organization, and use of evidence from fall to spring. This gives us a clear data point to monitor whether instructional changes are having an impact and helps to ensure expectations are aligned as students move from grade to grade all the way to Triton. The third action step is implementing the Say It, Think It, and Write It as a school-wide writing practice. This step is directly tied to what our data shows. When we analyze student writing samples, a common issue is not lack of understanding, but the lack of clarity at the sentence level. One article that strongly influenced this work was titled The Year of the Sentence. They found when schools intentionally focus on a sentence-level writing, go back to the basics, students made meaningful gains in organization and idea development. That mirrors what we see at Pine Grove. Students can explain their thinking verbally, but writing breaks down when ideas need to be expressed clearly on paper. Say It, Think It, and Write It is going to teach students to say their thinking, organize it, and then write it in complete sentences. This happens across grade levels and content areas, not just during ELA. These are the studs of our house. They may seem small, but without those strong sentences, paragraph and essays, they're not going to stand alone. And our fourth action step is strengthening writing about reading using the claim evidence reasoning. This action step is where the house really starts to take shape. CER is how we teach students to explain their thinking clearly and intentionally, not just give an answer. In the earliest grades, this begins simply. Students learn to answer a question, they point to something in the text or the picture that supports their thinking, and they explain why they chose that answer, often orally and then in writing. As students move through the grades, expectations increase, and in the middle grades, the students are expected to choose stronger evidence and begin explaining how that evidence supports their claim. In the upper grades, students organize multiple pieces of evidence, explain their reasoning more and fully, and then write responses that show clear thinking from start to finish. Our data shows that this is a consistent area of need. Students often understand what they read, but they struggle to explain their thinking in writing. The CER will provide a shared structure that builds year after year. It connects directly to our sacred writing into the Say It, Think It, and Write It. Students use their stamina to keep on writing, their sentence-level skills to express their ideas and clearly, and the CER to organize those ideas in a way that makes sense to the reader. So in terms of the house analogy, CER is how we frame the rooms. The foundation is strong, the sentences are solid, and the CER will connect the pieces to the structure above, won't wobble. And then the final action step is celebrating the writing growth and student progress. Celebration to us matters because confidence impacts performance. And when students see their writing shared, displayed, and valued, they are more willing to take risks and persist. Through daily sacred writing sharing, authors' chairs experience, hallway displays, our Roots to Wings partnerships, students see themselves as writers and take pride in their growth. This reinforces motivation, belonging, and engagement. We are strengthening the small pieces so the larger structure can stand, and we're building carefully from the ground up. So that as a writing demands increase, our students are ready, not just academically, but as confident, capable learners. And now I would like to talk about our math goal. That is on page 17. If you think back to our ELA goal, a big part of that work was about strengthening foundations so students can clearly explain their thinking. You're going to hear a similar theme in math. By the end of the 2028-2029 school year, Pine Grove School will strengthen early numeracy, fractions, and decimals across pre-K through 6 to improve students' ability to visualize, model, solve, and explain complex mathematical problems as measured by Acadience Math and MCAS. One thing we really feel confident about in math is that we've been here before. Several years ago, I sat in this exact seat and showed that our data pointed clearly to geometry as an area that needed attention. We responded with a focus and intention. We protected instructional time, aligned materials, created shared routines and language, and stayed consistent across grade levels. We didn't try to fix everything at once, we just stayed the course. Well, that work paid off. Today, geometry is a strength at Pine Grove. Students consistently perform above state, and teachers see the confidence transfer into other areas of math. That success matters because it shows what's possible when you commit, like I said, to a sustained system-wide focus. So we said, where are we going next? When we looked at our current math data, geometry continues to stand out as strong, but now we're seeing more variability somewhere else. In kindergarten, in grade 1, students are making growth, but many are not consistently meeting end-of-year proficiency benchmarks in early number sense. In some cases, proficiency actually decreases over the year. That tells students are learning the skills, but their understanding of number, quantity, and relationships isn't secure as it needs to be. As students move to the upper grade, the early gap shows up in different ways. We continue to see growth, but it's not always consistent or sustained. MCAS data shows a fluctuation in fraction and decimal related standards more than geometry. And we see similar patterns in constructed response questions where students are asked to model their thinking, solve multi-step problems, and explain their reasoning. And when we took a step back, we saw these are not separate issues. Everything's connected. Early number sense is the foundation for everything that follows. Fraction and decimals depend on a strong understanding of quantity, equivalence, and place values. Those concepts feed directly into measurement, data, and multi-step problem solving. Constructed response tasks bring it all together by requiring students to show and explain their thinking and not just arrive at the answer. Using our building analogy, once again, geometry is strong and visible part of our structure. But if the foundation, the early numeracy, isn't solid and the connection between the floors, fraction, decimals, and reasoning aren't there, the structure's not going to hold as the math gets harder and more complex in the upper grades. The math goal, once again, is going back to the foundation. This isn't a quick fix or chasing a single score. It's about building math understanding that's durable, connected, and transferable year to year. So now I'm going to talk about the action steps. Our first action step, protect instructional time. Just as we did with geometry, we are going to intentionally design our master schedule with non-negotiable blocks at each grade level, which focuses on the same priority skills school-wide. Time will signal priority. This means, just as we did with geometry, we're going to have a spiral block in our master schedule, but this time we may focus on fractions, we may focus on decimals. The next action step is concrete, pictorial, abstract, in Math in Focus. Students move from hands-on to visual abstract. This builds conceptual understanding and transfers across grade levels. UPS Check, the district-wide initiative, we're going to continue to build upon that. This shared problem-solving approach will strengthen reasoning, model, and explanation, directly supporting constructed responses. The next action step, teams meet regularly to analyze assessments, student work, adjust our instruction, and align practices across grade levels. And of course, step E, maintain geometry. We're not stepping away from geometry. It remains daily, protected strength that supports fractions, decimals, and spatial reasoning. I'm now going to move on to our third goal. And to be honest, if you ask me, I think this is the most important goal. And that is because at Pine Grove, relationships and a sense of belonging are what's most important. The most important work that we do is loving our students. And if we were ranking it by importance, this would absolutely be my first goal. But I was running out of time, so I kept it there. By the end of the 2028-2029 school year, Pine Grove will strengthen students' sense of belonging, engagement, social emotional well-being. Across pre-K through grade 6, progress will be measured through the School Quality Measures Survey, attendance data, and continued positive indicators of school culture and student support. At Pine Grove, social emotional learning is not separate from academics. It's the foundation that makes learning possible. Over the past year, we were very intentional about building strong relationships and making sure every student felt safe, supported, and truly a part of Pine Grove. And the data show that this work matters. Office referrals, as I said, decreased 35%. And it didn't happen because we became more punitive. It happened because we became more proactive, more relationships, and more consistent in how we support students. At the same time, when we reviewed our school quality measure data, we identified an important next step. While many indicators were positive, Pine Grove scored below in the value of learning quality. This told us something critical. Behavior was improving, but students' sense of belonging, importance of learning, and the connection over time needed more intentional attention. This shifted our focus from simply reducing negative behaviors to actively strengthening belonging and engagement. Programs like our Roots to Wings were central to our success by intentionally pairing students across grade levels. We created those opportunities for mentorship, leadership, empathy, and connection. Our PBS Pride system reinforced positive behaviors in school-wide assemblies focused on kindness, inclusion, and community. And through the work of ISED, we kept asking that same guided questions. Do our students feel loved? Do our students feel supported? And do our students feel valued? We also were intentional about listening to families and making connections with families. We know this to be true. When students feel emotionally safe and connected, they engage. And when families feel supported, the students show up. Attendance data reinforces that connection. The next goal, this goal builds directly on that work that we've already done, and it deepens with greater intention. Now I'm going to briefly just walk through our action steps. First, we want to bring our Roots to Wings program to another level. As an instructional structure for belonging with more intentional lessons and planning, this time we'll focus on belonging, empathy, responsibility, perseverance, and the value of learning. Our older students will continue to develop leadership, and the younger students will experience consistent connection and modeling from our older students. We are then going to implement explicit SEL instruction with a shared school-wide language. Social emotional skills deserve the same explicit instruction as academics. Reintroducing tools like zones of regulation will ensure consistency across classrooms and grade levels. And third, our PBS Pride, we need to weave that into our Portrait of a Learner and our Pine Grove values. Expectations and recognition will connect behavior to who students are becoming. Are they becoming communicators, collaborators, problem solvers? This will help expectations feel meaningful rather than punitive. We feel it is important to weave PGS Pride and the POL together, consistent language and consistent values. And fourth, we're going to continue to leverage our ISED committee to guide SEL programming and support students and families through thoughtful, proactive planning. And finally, strengthen family partnerships through guidance, attendance, and relationships-based support. Attendance will be addressed through connection and problem solving, recognizing the strong link between belonging and showing up, working alongside our district. At Pine Grove, relationships are not add-ons, they're the work, the care, the consistency, and the commitment that our staff show every single day. For students to take risks, learn, and grow, and this goal reflects who we are and our commitment to ensure to every child and every family that truly belongs here. Before I close tonight, I just want to direct your attention briefly to page 23. This outlines our facilities review, and at this time, there are no identified facilities needs requiring improvement. This school improvement plan reflects intentional work, deep data analysis, and a clear understanding of who our students are and what they need. It builds our strength, addresses the areas of growth thoughtfully, and stays grounded in what we believe matters most: strong instruction and strong relationships in a school where every child feels known and supported and capable. None of this work would happen in isolation. It's the result of incredible staff, engaged families, a wonderful district, and a dedicated school council who cares deeply about Pine Grove and, of course, the best students. I'm proud of where we are, confident in where we're going, and excited about our work ahead. And that's it.
Anybody have any questions for Nicole?
I know, I tried to be fast. I try. I was an elementary school teacher, so, yeah.
To start? Okay. I do. So I appreciate this. Very data driven, which I appreciate because, obviously it's really, really hard to look at these student populations that are so varied and diverse. And it's obviously you want to kind of treat every single child as an individual, but that's hard, right? We have to do trends just because there's only so much time in the school day and only so many bodies that are there to kind of support these students. So I appreciate your work on that because I think you called out some big trends. My biggest question here is just about how you're measuring these goals. MCAS is a once a year and it's a very delayed results for when we get them. SQM is once a year and it's mid-year. So we get those results faster, but it's measuring that sort of mid-year temperature, and I know that's by design through, the work that UMass has done. Can you just talk about, because I see a lot of things in here about, looking for continued positive trends. Are you using other methods to measure than just the specific ones called out?
Absolutely. And I think that when talking about the social emotional goal, I think I had referenced that we used a lot of the activities within the Roots to Wings program, the language with the students, conversations with students, to sort of, like you said, get a pulse on the Roots to Wings, because I 100% agree with that. Also, when you're talking about the writing goal, we used the writing benchmarks which happen multiple times a year. You also have our sacred writing, which is daily. You have end of unit assessments in CKLA that we can use. The more of the trends that we looked at were the iReady trends, as well as the MCAS. We looked at DIBELS year after year because we understood that those younger students, and when we started to look at these trends, we started to notice things. And if you take all the data throughout the year, it was the same pattern over and over and over that it was writing. And we even took it down even to go like teachers that moved to other grades to see. And then when talking with the teachers, we checked in about, and I checked with Anna and I said, well, where are the other, the third grade teachers and where they're at? And then I asked Anna for data and Kayla for data, and it was like we were really digging deep, looking at multiple data points. So your question is, yes, MCAS is once a year, and I 100% agree. But the key is with the writing is that we have so many data points throughout the year. We don't need to depend on it. But when we really dug deep at the MCAS data, there were really some significant trends. And it's interesting because they're just parts, and you look at Pine Grove and we're performing above the state, but then when you dig deeper and you want to take those out, we're not performing above the state in certain standards and indicators. So that's sort of where, we came from. The same with math, you have the end of unit tests, and we meet with our data hours and we look at data 3 times a year, but then we do progress monitoring meetings between them. And we set up action plans based on the multiple data points that we see throughout the year. Yeah.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. I know your goals call out those specific big ones, which I appreciate, but the individual outcomes talk about what you expect to see, but not how you are measuring those.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that clarification on that.
Thank you.
I particularly like how you are incorporating the older students to be leaders to the younger students. I mean, I see when the seniors come and walk around the schools, how those younger kids look up to those
Definitely.
older kids that come there. And it's the same thing with the 6th graders. I imagine the younger kids look up to them.
Oh,
Especially when you
100%.
have them on the buses and being leaders on the bus. I mean, that's where you really need to have those leaderships on the bus. I think that's wonderful to bring them forward. I mean, look at Owen, who is on our school committee that was a student leader. And now we have Foster, so fostering those relationships at such a young age, I think, is a wonderful way to.
And the Roots to Wings program, and you can attest, it's been like,
Oh, it's been so much fun.
and the sacred writing, it is just like exploded with the impact that has made. And I didn't think it would at first, but watching it, it's like, we're very intentional with the Roots to Wings. Elise and I create all the activities. We make sure that they are aligned with Portrait of a Learner. We make sure they're aligned with skills. We make sure they're aligned with what's happening. If it's something with winter or fall or summer. And they're also divided into developmental. So we have some for first, we have some for sixth, and they can choose if you have a child in your class that's not, at grade level. You can choose an activity from 2nd grade, and then we have teachers creating them. So just the mentorship of what has been happening, it's been a huge impact in the positive.
And seeing those kids as the younger ones get, they probably can't wait to be a leader themselves.
Yes.
I think it's wonderful.
Yes.
I also wanted to ask, I mean, may not be a question for you, but for Ann or Shannon. I see in here about Ann Larson from Landmark. Do they go across all 3 schools? all three elementaries?
Yes, they actually, Landmark Outreach works. There is funding for each school to use it any way they want. Our support does fifth year.
Yes.
Yeah, this is our fifth year, so each school gets specific amount of, it's not on. Oh, sorry, thought it would turn green.
There you go.
So each school gets a specific amount of funding to use any way they need to, and they work with Ann to determine the best way to use it.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have anything? Go ahead, Paul.
First thing is mostly a thought and maybe a question for Anna, but one, I love the CER at the high school level. Like, we're still using it. This is how we frame
Right.
things, because science, history, whatever. But one of the things that I've started thinking about, and we talk about sometimes, science is moving to the shift to ERC, ERC.
Yep.
And I don't know where that becomes developmentally appropriate at all, but it's just like that thinking shift is really a powerful thing in terms of
Yeah.
getting thoughts on paper. And then the other thing was in the SEL goals. You have that parent connection, that family connection at the end. And right now I'm thinking about that we still use the language from that year of SEL at home. And is there ways to bring like the zones of regulation language that you're using in schools to that parent communication as well, so that you get that reinforcing circle?
I love that. What'd you want to say?
Oh, in my class, I've already started implementing, or I continue to implement the zones of regulations, but they have parent letters that go home, so the language can be carried over from what's been taught at school to home.
Yeah. It is, I love that idea, though, of being very intentional about that, because I have parents ask all the time, it's, what can we do at home? What can we do at home when they're having challenges at home with behaviors and just self-regulation, regulating their emotions and so forth. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Anyone else? Thank you, Nicole.
I have my budget.
Yeah.
It's quick. Promise. All right.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Pay attention.
Okay.
Out of here.
Nice try, Liz.
And Michael and Patty and I were having a conversation, and I'm going first, so our requests are similar, and so we were saying that with me going first, so there'll probably be some overlap of what they're saying too, so just. So talking about our budget, I'm first going to direct your attention to page 3. And I just wanted to make note that you're going to notice a staffing decrease reflected on this page, and this decrease is not the result of any personnel that I am going to be cutting or shifting. This is just rather a relocation of the REACH program to SES, with 5 staff members moving with the program to ensure that students receive the services that they need at SES. So that's why you saw the decrease. I just wanted to be clear with that. And then on page 5, just outlines the 2 staffing requests that I'm going to ask, that I'm bringing again for this year. And I understand these requests may not be possible, but given our current needs, I believe it is important to continue advocating for these positions year to year that directly support students. These are my only requests for additional staffing. My first request is the .5 social worker to full-time. Pine Grove is requesting an increase in the current .5 social worker position to a full-time role. Pine Grove has the highest population in the 3 elementary schools, yet is currently supported by 1.5 positions between guidance and counseling and social work. As a result, student needs continue to grow in both number and complex. This level of support limits our ability to provide consistent proactive services. Expanding the social worker position to full-time would allow the school to support families and access and outside resources, provide daily support for home-to-school transitions, offer long-term counseling for students who have experienced trauma, and also expand Tier 2, Tier 3 interventions, including small group and classroom-based SEL lessons. A full-time social worker would also strengthen collaboration with the school's guidance counselor, allowing for shared caseloads and more coordinated support for students. Currently, our guidance counselor has 46 students on his caseload in grades K to 6, while the .5 social worker has 31 students across the same grade span. Both professionals serve on the ISED committee and the instructional support team, provide crisis support, participate in IEP and 504 meetings, consult with teachers, and deliver Tier 2 and Tier 3 counseling service. The increase would allow Pine Grove to move toward a more preventive and sustainable model of support, rather than relying primarily on the reactive services. My second request is the STEM teacher. We're requesting an additional STEM teacher. This position would allow STEM to be fully integrated into the special rotation, providing weekly scheduled STEM instruction for all students in full-day kindergarten, in full-day preschool, kindergarten through grade 6. Instruction would align with the Massachusetts Science, Technology, and Engineering framework, emphasizing problem-solving, designing solutions, and communicating ideas. These skills support critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration across disciplines. This position would build on existing district curriculums, including STEM scopes or Inspire, STEM labs, our maker spaces. No core curriculum would need to be purchased. This position ensures equitable across to high-quality STEM learning experience and strengthens Pine Grove's instructional programs. While I understand this request may not be feasible at this time, I think it's important to continue to advocate this role. And then finally, I'll direct your attention to page 6, which outlines the PGS supplies and service budget requests. You are going to see a 3% increase driven by rising costs for instructional materials, consumables, software, and licensing fees. One clear example, though, that I want to share with you where it is way above a 3% increase is Dibbles, our literacy screener, seems to be increasing from this year $1 a student to $11 a student. This results in a $2,700 increase in Pine Grove single line item. The PGS budget reflects a total increase of $14,597 across supply and instructional line items. This increase allows Pine Grove to maintain current instructional tools and resources in the face of rising costs. And then just closing that the budget reflects careful planning, realistic projections, and a continued focus on student needs. Thank you for your time.
I'd like that raise.
Uh-huh.
$1 to $11. I'd like that. Is there a reason for that?
I don't know.
Not a good one. They've told us we're getting a deal because new customers are at $15 per student, and we get in at 11, grandfathered into something. So they haven't told us when that's going into effect. I'm hoping we can sneak through, but they're really unclear at this time with when that's happening. But I do know that it is coming down the pipe.
If I could just hop in and make a couple of comments really quick. So in the staffing chart, you'll notice that the numbers are off slightly. Learning my way around these Google Forms, these tables do not add on their own. So as I have 15, of these open, I'm trying to, get them all going. But so they are correct on board docs. So the correct number for Nicole's staff going into fiscal year 27 should be 73. And you'll see something similar for SES. The correct number is in board docs, and I'll call it out at that point too. And then just as a way of kind of wayfinding, if you will, for the professional staff, the number that we used as a placeholder was the current master step 6. And then we added $25,000 for benefits. So you'll see that kind of consistently through. And then obviously for the 0.5 social worker, that's cut in half. Shannon has a request that position gets a stipend, so that's added on there as well. So hopefully that helps.
Does anybody have any questions? Thank you, Nicole and Liz.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Now introducing Michael Estuccio, Principal, Salisbury Elementary School. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Let me get my binder set up here. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all. I just want to start by thanking the students, families, and staff at Salisbury Elementary for a great first year as principal there. And I also want to thank the central office staff and my fellow elementary principals, as well as middle and high school principal, for all of their support over the last year. Before I dive into the school improvement plan, I want to recognize the members of the SES School Council, Kara Balkis, Holly Counts Van Hoos, Dan Bertrand, and Lauren Sargent, and thank them for all of their collaboration as we put together our new school improvement plan. Before we begin, I want to start, this year at SES, we are beginning every meeting that we have, whether it's a staff meeting or PD committee or ELA instructional team. Anytime staff is gathering, we are reviewing 5 statements. We're calling them our SES focus statements. And I want to share those with you all tonight before we jump in. They are: 1, we believe in our students. We are their unrelenting champions. 2, we approach families from a place of support. 3, we are a professional community where all staff support one another. 4, we are committed to our own learning and are open to new ideas. And 5, we are working together to build a brighter future for all students. So each time we gather as a community, we review those statements as certainly, where we aspire to be as a professional community. On page 4, I want to call your attention to both the theme and vision and the snapshot, because those were revised this year. So I just want to pause for a moment to go over those, because I think in addition to those 5 focus statements, these really encapsulate our values and our vision for where we would like to be as a school. So I'm just going to take a moment to read those. Our updated theme and vision says, "At Salisbury Elementary School, we believe in the promise and potential of every child. Our school community, made up of students, families, educators, and community members, work together to create the academic, social, emotional, and physical conditions for learning where children feel safe, supported, and inspired to do their best. Rooted in our core values of be safe, be responsible, be respectful, and be kind, we place strong emphasis on effort, attitude, and personal growth. Through collaboration, high expectations for all, and care for the whole child, we strive to cultivate a learning environment where every child can feel valued, supported, and successful so that they develop curiosity, resilience, and a lifelong love of learning." We also revised our snapshot below that. Salisbury Elementary School is united in the belief that every child can succeed. We cultivate a safe, welcoming, and inclusive learning environment where students develop their academic skills alongside social and emotional growth. Through strong partnerships with families and community members, we create a network of support that helps students build confidence, discover strengths, and persevere through challenges. Instruction is intentionally designed to meet learners where they are, providing targeted intervention, additional support, and/or enrichment as needed. And in doing so, we hold high expectations for all students while providing the high level of support needed to achieve success. Thank you for indulging me as I read aloud to you. On the next page, on page 5, we have our enrollment data that is provided by the state, which just affirms that we are a diverse community of learners, certainly in race, ethnicity, language, abilities, and socioeconomic status. And beneath that, you can see the overview of progress towards our previous school improvement goals. So I'd like to take a moment just to review what the data has told us about our progress towards those goals, and then we will, just as Principal LePerriere did, get into how that kind of informed our school council's approach to setting new goals. So our ELA goal for last year was that by the end of the 2024 to 2025 school year, there would be a 20% increase in the number of students performing at grade level and achieving annual typical or stretch growth as measured by the iReady Reading Benchmark Assessment. In speaking with the school council that created these goals, their intention was to set lofty goals and see how achievable and realistic, those were, recognizing that there was a significant need to increase the number of students who were meeting or exceeding expectations and achieving growth. But what we know, about typical progress is that we don't see 20 to 30% increases in a single year. And we'll be talking a little bit more about how we're using that information to inform kind of our next goals. Certainly not abandoning this very worthy goal and kind of breaking it down into more manageable pieces. But in reviewing the iReady benchmark data from the spring of 2025, it was clear that minimal progress was made toward this goal. We did not really see any percentage change in the number of students who were performing at grade level as measured by that iReady reading benchmark assessment. You can see there at the bottom of page 5 that in each spring assessment, both 2024 and 2025, 57% of students were in grades 1 through 6 were performing at or above grade level. As a school council, we broke that down to look at, potentially where some grade levels may have approached that goal. And as you can see on the chart on page 6, in analyzing, that data, what is seen is relatively consistent performance from the spring of 2024 to the spring of 2025. Each percentage change representing either a small positive or negative change, with some exceptions, indicating an overall minimal significant change in academic results for iReady on the reading assessment. So that's the first half of the goal. The second half of the goal was about the typical growth or stretch growth, targeting an increase in the percentage of students who were achieving either of those things. Just as a reminder, typical growth is the average academic progress expected for a student based on their initial diagnostic performance, aiming for about 1 year's worth of learning within a school year, and their stretch growth is that more aggressive goal, the one that's really going to help them close learning gaps, aiming for on-grade level performance. So when we looked for the reading goal at a detailed breakdown of the percentage of students either achieving their typical growth or their stretch growth, we can see that, again, it's clear that little progress was made towards that 20% increase that was targeting an increase in percentage of students achieving the stretch or typical growth. I do want to note, while neither portions of this goal were met, there certainly are celebrations, particularly for last year's 6th grade cohort, who you can see on the chart on page 7. We saw an increase of 23% of students who were achieving their typical growth and an increase of 19% of students who were achieving their stretch growth in last year's 6th grade cohort. I also just wanted to take a moment to point out that our 5th grade cohort, for their stretch growth, we can see some significant decreases there, and that's actually inconsistent with our MCAS data. Our MCAS data for our last year's 5th grade cohort was quite the opposite. They were actually verging on high growth in both ELA and math, so our instructional teams are still trying to piece together exactly why that data doesn't exactly match up, because typically we do see consistencies between iReady and MCAS. One kind of working theory that we're still kicking around is whether assessment fatigue played into things, because our 5th graders take the most amount of MCAS. They have 3 subjects for MCAS. Their final iReady comes pretty quickly on the heels of a lot of testing. So it's one idea we're kicking around, but still trying to dig into why the growth on iReady for that cohort is not matching the really strong growth on MCAS for that cohort. So that is the update on the ELA goal. On page 8, you can see our math goal from last year is listed, and this was an even more aggressive goal, very similar, targeting a 30% increase in the number of students performing at grade level and achieving annual or typical stretch growth as measured by iReady Math. So the school council and I broke down the data in a very similar way, and we can see a pretty consistent trend here. Between the spring of 2024 and the spring of 2025, we can see pretty consistent performance, a 1% decrease in the number of students performing at grade level as measured by the iReady Math benchmark assessment. We did see some significant decreases observed in grade 1 and grade 2, which informed some of the action steps we took for this school year in order to prioritize support in the early grade levels, and I'll be talking a little bit about that when we get to our new goals. Otherwise, though, what's seen is really relatively consistent performance from spring 24 to spring 25, with those percentage changes representing either a small positive or negative change, with those exceptions that I just mentioned. I do want to note there that our fifth grade cohort did make a 10% increase in the number of students who are scoring at or above grade level by the end of the year. So again, in that first part of the goal, right, where we're targeting a 30% increase in students who are achieving, at or above grade level, it's clear based on our data that little to no progress was made towards that portion of the goal. When we look at that second half of the goal, targeting an increase in the number of students achieving typical or stretch growth, you can see again on the chart on page 9, not enormous swings in either direction, with the exception of our grade 1 cohort. And again, we've done some prioritizing of some support for those folks, which I'll get into, for those students, which I'll get into in a minute. But again, with our grade 6, we have a celebration there where we saw an increase of 25% in students achieving typical growth and an increase in 20% of students achieving their stretch growth. So, Dr. Bates and I have had some conversations about, growth for some of our selected populations here can really hide in the averages when we're looking at those trends. And so certainly there are, celebrations, to recognize here. But all that being said, right, when we consider both parts of that goal, the 30% increase in at or above grade level and students achieving, typical or stretch growth, it's clear that we did not meet that goal as well. Our third goal last year was to provide a learning environment that fosters resilient students who utilize strategies and skills for social and academic success. This is on page 10. We've continued and strengthened a lot of our practices that relate to social emotional learning, and I have to give Assistant Principal Jane Keeler a big shout out because a lot of this were things that she really kickstarted coming back from COVID and has continued to strengthen these practices over time. So I want to give her kudos. Much of this is tied into our positive behavior interventions and support systems, our character education assemblies, our effort and attitude positive office referrals, our student of the month recognitions, and the explicit teaching of social and emotional skills through Tier 1 and Tier 2 instruction. I'll spend just a moment on each of those. In terms of our PBIS system, we systematically teach expected behaviors for all students in all areas of the school, and those expected behaviors are aligned to those core values I mentioned earlier. Be safe, be responsible, be respectful, and be kind. We do trainings at least 2 times a year, once in the very beginning of the year as we welcome students back from their summer vacation, and then typically again in January after we welcome the students back from their December vacation so that we can have a refresher. To recognize and reinforce those positive and expected behaviors, we use super tickets. Those super tickets are given out by any staff member to any student who is demonstrating positive and expected behaviors and entered into a Class of the Week raffle where the selected Class of the Week, 1 per grade level, is able to work together to select a prize. 2 things we've done this year to try to strengthen our practices here is that over the summer we had a group of about 12 6th grade volunteers who gave their time and came in and filmed training videos that are being shown in the class. So to Linda's point earlier, right, instead of having our younger students, listen to their teacher about the expectations, they're actually seeing and hearing from our oldest students modeling and talking about those expectations and showing it on those videos. And the students did a fantastic job with those. We're very proud of them for stepping up and being leaders, and those videos have proven very useful both in those planned trainings 2 times a year, but also in those moments where a teacher recognizes, oh, you know what, my class is having some trouble following the expectations during morning arrival, right? Let's revisit this video and practice this. So that's been a really great way to respond to student need. We've also implemented school-wide super ticket challenges. So through these challenges, our entire community is given a benchmark to meet, like 500 tickets. Right now, we're working towards a crazy hair day. I think we're at like 468, so we're getting close. There's a lot of excitement. We've continued character education assemblies involving our student council made up of grade 4 through grade 6 students. Last year, we focused on monthly character traits, and they would perform skits or read books or make presentations about the character trait of the month. The students would have to kind of guess and identify that. We would spend some time teaching about how to show that character trait. And then throughout that month, teachers would be implementing mini lessons or talking about it during morning meeting. At the end of the month, we would be able to recognize a student of the month. Last year, we recognized one student per grade level. This year, we're piloting recognizing one student per classroom so that we have more opportunities to highlight and recognize more students who are going above and beyond to demonstrate these positive characteristics. We've also aligned that work with Portrait of a Learner this year and are pairing that with daily morning announcements reminding the students of one way to show the characteristic each day. The last few pieces of the social emotional goal that I want to touch on are effort and attitude cards, which are positive office referrals for students at SES. So these are handwritten notes. Any staff member can write them to any student. The student receives the note and a special effort and attitude pencil, and we celebrate these students as a community. Their names are announced over the loudspeaker. We typically take photos and post those to our sites, and they're able to bring home their card and share that note with their family. We do have Tier 1 and Tier 2 social emotional learning instruction that can happen during morning meeting or other community meetings, and lunch bunch and social groups. And we've been fortunate the last 2 years to welcome Girls Inc. in for additional lunch bunch meetings for 5th and 6th grade students as well. And the student feedback on that was very positive in the spring, so we were excited to bring them back for this year as well. Finally, as Nicole had mentioned, we took a look at our school quality measures and particularly focused on school culture and the approval and growth ratings for certain categories. We're at an approval level for student sense of belonging, student-teacher relationships, and social supports for the parents. We are at a growth level for student physical safety, student emotional safety, social experiences for parents, valuing of learning, and academic challenge, and that helped inform our new social emotional goal. Finally, I just want to highlight the chart on page 12 is our composite average of vocal data. Vocal is Views on Climate and Learning. It's a survey that 4th and 5th graders take after they complete their MCAS assessment, and it surveys them on things like school climate, engagement, safety, and environment. And we can see across all domains, we have made some slight increases in students' perception and view on their learning experience while they are at SES. So that is something that staff took some time to celebrate, is that, although, slight increases, certainly headed in the right direction, and some exciting information coming up about our students' perception of their school experience. All right, moving on to page 13 and 14, you can see our performance data from last spring. I wanted to pause just to go back to that comment about sometimes, celebrations can hide in the averages, and just highlight a few exciting pieces of data that our staff has taken some time to celebrate. The percentage of students in grades 3 through 6 meeting or exceeding grade level expectations in the area of math on the MCAS is above the state average. The percentage of students in grade 5 meeting or exceeding grade level expectations in the area of science is above the state average. The percentage of students meeting or exceeding grade level expectations in the area of ELA has begun to recover from our post-pandemic dip. Our grade 6 students achieved an average student growth percentile categorized as high growth in the area of mathematics. Our grade 5 students nearly achieved high growth in both mathematics and ELA. High growth is 61% and above, and they were 60 and some tenths each. And then our grade 3 through 6 students achieved the highest average student growth percentile in the district in the area of math. So certainly some exciting growth data emerging from our assessments. In a moment, I'm going to touch on some of the things we've done to prioritize support for the last year's grade 1, which you saw in some of the charts for the iReady data, where it was indicated that we certainly need to be prioritizing some support. But I do want to call your attention down to the grade 1 row on the Dibbles data at the bottom of page 14. And just pause for a moment to share, and I believe I've shared at school committee before that we were one of 10 schools selected for a one-year extension of the evidence-based practices grant by DESE. So, schools who were accepted into this grant were invited to apply for that one-year extension and were asked to show how that grant funding had supported the implementation of evidence-based practices and that impact on student learning. And we supplied our data and some narrative, and were fortunate to receive that award, which has funded a co-teaching position, which we assigned to grade 2 this year, looking at our learning data and seeing the clear need at that grade level between both ELA and math, as well as social emotional learning. The team at SES really felt like we needed to prioritize that early support, especially, as Nicole had mentioned, those years are so critical for foundational skills. And so we wanted to prioritize the support there. So that's something I'll be speaking about a little bit more, but just wanted to pause and remind you folks of that. So when we get to page 15, all of the information that I just went over informed the setting of new goals. And going back to what I was speaking about towards the beginning, right? When we think about making progress, 20% and 30% are extremely high expectations for a single academic year. So our thought was, we don't want to abandon those aggressive goals. We want to see our students, right, improving. We do want to eventually get to those benchmarks. But what we would like to do is really break that up over the course of the next 3 years. And so our intention is that by facilitating a smaller percentage of growth year over year, at the end of these 3 years, we'll arrive at levels of growth similar to those proposed by the original targets in the goals that we just reviewed. Certainly, each year we plan to reconsider the percentages proposed in these goals based on how our students are doing, so that we can be implementing responsive actions and responsive instruction based on what we're seeing. But the school council felt, that by breaking these down into more manageable chunks, we might be able to see some progress and kind of feel that momentum for each of the goals. So as you can see with goals 1, 2, and 3, right, the overarching goal is where we would like to be by the end of this school improvement plan in 2029. But what we did with the bullet points under each goal on page 15 is just break down, by the end of each school year, where we're hoping to be, which represents about a 3 to 5% increase of change each year. And as I said, our school council and our instructional teams will certainly be revisiting those goals as we kind of see how our students develop. And so our third goal is the social emotional goal. And so similar to how Principal LePerriere went through, I'll kind of jump to page 17 here so we can talk about some of our action steps. But our first goal is that by the end of the 28 to 2029 school year, 73% or more of students will perform at or above grade level, and 82% or more will meet their typical or stretch growth as measured by the iReady reading benchmark assessment. And a lot of our action plans have to do with strengthening existing practices and really staying consistent so that we're monitoring student progress and student growth and achievement and creating those targeted action plans to make sure we're implementing responsive instruction. So we will continue to administer Dibbles, a more expensive version, and iReady to students in grades 1 through 6 3 times a year to be capturing that benchmark data, and then also be progress monitoring the students in between so that we're making sure we're keeping tabs closely on their learning data. Facilitating those data meetings 3 times a year with the intermittent progress monitoring meetings, continuing monthly meetings of the ELA instructional team so that we can collect feedback and plan, analyze data, and implement school-wide initiatives. We'll continue to implement the Dyslexia Action Plan, and we also will continue to facilitate an MCAS data dive meeting for grades 3 through 6 to analyze both their current student data from their previous grade and their past student data to really look at kind of curriculum implications. We look at it as kind of 2 things, right? You want to see where your students are coming to you from, but you also want to reflect on your past practice and see if there's adjustments that need to be made to that as well. Some of the other things I want to mention quickly that are not listed in the action steps, but will certainly be tackling. This year, we were fortunate to use some of that evidence-based practices grant to train all instructional staff who had not been trained on co-teaching on the co-teaching approaches. And so every instructional staff member at SES now has that tool in their tool belt. So if we do see a cohort that is particularly in need of additional support, we have the flexibility now to assign co-teaching teams really anywhere they're needed. I want to credit Darlene White, our reading specialist, and Taryn Gracia, our math specialist, who've worked on weekly challenges for our students. So for ELA, we have Sentence of the Week and Quest of the Week. For math, we have Problem of the Week. These are aligned to certainly question types that students see on challenging assessments, but also targeted to some of the data review that we've done at our instructional team. So if we're noticing, right, that the students are having difficulty with sentence structure type questions, right? Darlene might take that Sentence of the Week or Quest of the Week assignment and focus it on sentence structure. So it's a weekly instructional routine that is relatively new at SES, but is, certainly inspiring some enthusiasm and engagement from our students. I talked with Darlene this morning, and I think she had about 100 students participate this past week in the Sentence of the Week and Quest of the Week. There was a question about Ann Larson. We are continuing our consultation with Landmark Outreach. And that's kind of two-pronged for us right now. One is in response to special educators seeking some insight on how to best support and differentiate within the CKLA instructional block. And then we also are seeking some feedback on how each of our literacy practices or blocks kind of fit together. Our foundational skills with Hegarty and Foundations, our Tier 1 instruction with core knowledge, language, arts, and then the supplemental reading block when we have books in the hands of students and they're working on their application of skills. Finally, we have those vertical strategies, the CER, and this year, the SES ELA instructional team is working on identifying a vertical strategy for narratives so that students can be exposed to common language across grade levels vertically so that it kind of cleans up our instructional routines in that way. In terms of our math goal, similarly, this is on page 19, we stretch it over the 3 years so that by the end of 2028 to 2029, 74% or more of students will perform at or above grade level, and 80% or more will meet their typical or stretch growth as measured by the iReady, that should say math benchmark assessment. I apologize for the typo. Very similar action steps here. We're administering those benchmark assessments and those foundational skills assessments in order to figure out where our students are those 3 times a year. We are implementing 3-time-a-year data meetings with progress monitoring in between so that we can be creating intervention or enrichment plans that really respond to the needs of students. This year, we were excited to implement facilitated 1-time-a-month co-planning time for kindergarten, first, and second grade. This was born from some work that Anna and Shannon and I did with some of the educators at SES through DESE's Instructional Prioritization Institute. So they take you through a process to help you identify an area of need and develop an action plan. And a big part of our action plan was having Taryn Gracia, our math specialist, meet 1 time a month for unit unpacking and lesson planning with K through 2 to really try to solidify our foundational skills as the students are in those early grade levels. We also are going to continue the monthly meetings of the SES Math Instructional Team, again, analyzing data, collecting feedback, and planning for and implementing school-wide initiatives, and similarly facilitating an MCAS data dive meeting for grades 3 through 6 to analyze their current student data and past student data for that kind of student lens and that curriculum lens. I mentioned Problem of the Week. That continues. SES was very excited this year to implement Continental Math League, the enrichment program for several of our students. We have that running at multiple grade levels, and the students are very excited about that. And we are also implementing those vertical strategies, the UPS check and the concrete pictorial abstract approach in Math in Focus to make sure that we are helping students develop their mathematical understanding, certainly meeting them where they're at and then moving them along that spectrum. Finally, our social emotional goal is that students in grades 4 and 5 will rate SES at the approval level for emotional safety and physical safety, as indicated by the School Quality Measures Survey. In order to do this, we're going to continue so much of what I talked about as having already been in place at SES, but strengthening that, continuing to implement our school-wide positive reinforcement systems like the super tickets, the class of the week, the effort and attitude cards, the student of the month, continuing to implement our character education assemblies. In terms of new approaches in order to help us meet this goal, this year during staff meeting, we are embarking on a journey together. All of our staff meetings are modules that we are completing together. This was designed based on staff feedback, an end-of-year survey last year, which identified aligning our approaches to behavior and social emotional learning as really a top priority at SES. So this year, every month, staff meets for an hour during staff meeting to complete a module, and the kind of title of it is From Compliance to Collaboration, shifting to student-centered skill-building approaches. And we just did a mid-year survey with our staff to ask, certainly their experience with this, but also what they're looking for in the next part of the year to make sure we're really meeting their needs. And I have to say, I was really pleased to see the amount of teachers who were expressing gratitude for just some new language, to grapple with social emotional learning and behavior, talking about how helpful it's been for them to kind of sit with the refrain of, am I co-escalating, am I co-regulating, thinking about regulation as kind of the goal before we can address behaviors. So through that, we are also implementing some training around vertical strategies, so rolling out zones school-wide for the first time, the zones of regulation. And in the next few months, we'll be rolling out, and several staff are already trained in this, but making sure everyone is familiar with collaborative problem solving and also approaching some staff education around restorative practices so that teachers have more tools in their tool belt in order to interface with behavior and social emotional concerns and that kind of piece of regulation. We'll continue to track office-managed behaviors on the TRSD office referral Google form, and we are going to identify 3 go-to strategies at SES to explicitly train in all students to promote self-regulation and self-control. And we are going to continue that work that we're doing at staff meetings, certainly, just as we did the mid-year survey to inform the rest of the year. I'm hoping at the end of the year to have some sort of reflection opportunity for staff to kind of share what they need in terms of ongoing support. And I'm hoping that all of that will help ready our community to kind of take that next step when we look at our goals for social emotional learning for the next 3 years. Finally, on page 22, we have our school facilities needs. So our need for a playground has not changed. So that's our highest priority area for improvement in terms of school facility. You might remember during the 23-24 school year, the structure was deemed unsafe, and so it needed to be removed. And so we have formed a playground committee. We are actively pursuing solutions to this with the ultimate goal of building a new structure on the grounds for the students to enjoy during their recess. Collaborating with town agencies, the district, the town of Salisbury, prospective vendors. We have selected a potential site, reviewed 3 potential designs, and begun to develop some fundraising materials and initiatives. And I will be back here in February to present an updated flyer and plan to you all. But other than that, our intentions really are to hopefully continue our carpet replacement project. So each summer, Mr. Tatro and his team have been removing, 2 to 3 classroom rugs and replacing those with tile. And then in terms of overall building needs, there are HVAC and roof concerns that remain. And the district's actually been partnering with the town of Salisbury to pursue some remedies. One, including a recent application to a grant, the Transforming Energy in Schools initiative. And I know Rich, John, and Brian have been working closely with the town officials on that process, which hopefully would secure some funding in order to address those aging systems. So that was a lot of information, and I'll pause there. We've got our seniors on page 24. I know, Linda, you had just mentioned, right? It's one of the best days of the year when those seniors come back and visit. So, we like to frame our school improvement plan with the kindergarten and sixth graders on the front and our seniors on the back, because that is the full journey. So, I'll pause there.
Does anybody have any questions for Michael?
Sorry, it's always me first.
Don't apologize.
So I appreciate this, right? End of your first year. I know your last year was like you basically got thrown into the school improvement plan, to put it kindly. This year, it looks like you've had a little bit more time to prepare for it. I guess my biggest question here on goals 1 and 2 is these are huge goals. I'm seeing a lot of data review going on and data gathering, but not a lot of implementation strategies. Is this because you're looking, I know we review this every year, right? Action goals will change every year. Are you, I'll just, like, I have my thoughts in my head, but can you talk about why it's really only the look at the data and
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. So many of well, I guess I should back up. During my first draft of the school improvement plan, I think I had about 25 action steps for each goal, and then Superintendent Fordret was like, slow your roll over there. So I certainly probably could have done a better job of kind of balancing those analyze the data and action plan sort of steps. Certainly with each component where we're looking at data, whether that is through our data meetings, through the IPI work, the common planning times. There is an action planning arm that goes along with that. Our teachers and our reading specialists and our Title I team are really engaged in that process of analyzing the data and then, making those responsive action plans. So I guess what I would say, and then tying that together with our instructional teams as well, is that so far what I found that process to be like is quite organic, is getting those teams together and saying, okay, let's, take a look at the item analysis report from last year's MCAS. What are we noting? Questions where, the students are engaged in inferential, comprehension questions, they're not doing quite as well at, let's make a plan, based on that. We certainly are engaged in that work, but I can understand your point that it's not quite as clear on paper here. But that's been my experience so far, is that kind of conversation with the teams has illuminated the action plan, but not, I agree, right? It's not as crystal clear here.
Yeah, and I think, we always want to come away with the question, like people say, what are you doing to move the needle, right? And I can't answer what you're doing to move the needle from what I'm seeing here on the page. We're just an approval body here. So I don't feel like I can get into, and say, I really want to see more of this from you. Right. But I would really I can't vocalize today if a parent walked up to me and said, what are you doing? Or a teacher walked up and said, I'm considering going to work at Salisbury Elementary, what's going on at Salisbury Elementary to really make progress here. I don't think I could vocalize that from this. And I think that's hard because we need to be able to vocalize that, right? Especially with, I don't know what word to use, but right, Salisbury Elementary has been in kind of a transition stage, right? And I think we need to be able to vocalize where's the initiative, what's being done, and I know it's happening, right? I mean, that's the thing is I know it's happening. I couldn't vocalize it based on this. And this is the piece that we do throughout the year that should really be able to say, this is what's being done to improve the school. It's exactly what this is. And on the last question, I guess this is more of a question for you just on your judgment. You're looking at school quality measures for the measurement on the social emotional goal that's in goal 3. do you believe, there's a lot of will continue tos that are sitting in there. Do you believe that you're moving the needle enough to hit that approval? Really hard. We've only had one school quality measure so far, so we don't know what it takes to move a lot of these needles. But do you believe that the actions that you have in here are continuing to implement those is going to be enough to get you to that approval stage?
I mean, certainly, I think, we have things to continue to implement and strengthen. I don't think culture changes overnight. I don't necessarily think that we have structures that need to be removed. I definitely think there are things that we could add, which is going to be born from our staff meeting modules that we've been completing. So when all staff are trained on those approaches, we're going to be able to identify our go-to strategies. And I do think that that's going to open up the road forward where all teachers are trained on a unified approach in order to interface with social emotional, challenges and behavior in a way that students feel safe and comfortable and supported. So do I think it will be enough? Potentially. Do I think that will be uncovered over time? Yes. And certainly, right, if we have indications over the next few years that what we're doing, strengthening our systems and adding those go-to strategies is not, then we have more things to consider and more strategies and systems to put in place.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I did want to comment that I just loved this idea of the staff meeting learning that's ongoing. I forget what the word was that you used about it, vision statement, something like that you used at the beginning.
The focus statements.
Yes, yeah. I think it's really powerful to model being a lifelong learner for students, and I think that piece of it in particular is not something that we see very often, and it really calls out that modeling for students that just you hit 12th grade, it doesn't end, right? Or you hit 6th grade and you go into the summer, or you hit whatever, that learning, it doesn't stop over vacation. It doesn't stop over, it may change, it may transition, but I think I really appreciate that piece because I feel like it's walking the walk.
Marissa hit on a few things that I was going to bring up. But over the years, the presentations have always started out not in the best light of Salisbury. And I appreciate you starting out with all Salisbury kids can learn, that any kid from any elementary school in the district can learn. And I appreciate you saying that. And when I see the iReady scores and all that, she hit exactly it, is this piece of paper is what you put on your website. And that's what people are going to look at when they say, do I want my kids to go to Newbury, Rowley, Salisbury, where do I want to live? They're going to look at that. So I personally think that you're doing a great job there at Salisbury. I think you're the person that needs to be there at Salisbury, and you're driving home that you don't lower the bar for the kids. You have to keep the bar where it is and raise the kids there. And I know it's going to be a slow process for Salisbury to get there, but we need to make sure parents and the community see in your school improvement plans that we are moving the needle. You have a lot of celebrations there, and I think you should highlight them more, of the celebrations that we're having here at Salisbury. Anybody else? Go ahead, Paul.
So I just have a question. I think I heard you say that all of your teachers now are trained in co-teaching.
Yeah, all of our
how-
instructional staff.
How and when did that happen?
Sure. Over the last 4 years, we've been able to train all of our staff in co-teaching approaches through that evidence-based practices grant that we received through DESE. So we were partnering with Seaside Consultants, who Judy DeLucia is a trainer in co-teaching. She's a retired principal and superintendent who now does consulting. And so we were able to roll this out over the last 4 years. She comes in for an initial 2-day training to educate teachers on co-teaching approaches. There are 6 different approaches. She takes them through it. And then there's ongoing support each year through that consultation and through the grant. So we have had walkthroughs with debriefs with Judy and her team to talk through, what's going well, what could be improved. And I will say we just recently had a walkthrough just a couple weeks ago, and the shift in practices and the positive feedback we're getting is really great to hear. But I think the strongest part of it, and was not exactly your question, but is the teacher's own belief in the practice. If the teachers feel confident in that practice, then the outcomes for the students are even stronger. So that was rolled out over the 4 years through the grant, and all of our instructional staff, from our special educators, our classroom teachers, our English language teachers, at this point are trained. So we have that flexibility, if there is a high level of need, we're able to assign it to, a classroom. And certainly co-teaching as well is, right, you can't throw 2 teachers at a room and expect for it to go well. So there's a lot of strategy and thought that goes into mindful pairings and productive partnerships, and there's intentional time set aside for them to plan as well. Because if there's no co-planning, then there's no co-teaching. So.
2 things. One, I just want to say I love how many times in that SEL goal that you said skills and strategies, because that's the key. What are they learning to do? And similar to what I said before, as much as you can get that out, because I think those ones, the skills and strategies for how you regulate yourself and how you are ones that definitely cycle all throughout the day.
Yep.
And the more that's consistent, the stronger those become. And then the other thing I wanted to say was just to echo that good things are happening. The 3 on the MCAS, the 3 growth percentiles, 60 or higher. 60s high growth. And that, as much as, I don't always think the MCAS measures a lot, that's the statistic that shows you have a grade level. And so I do think that's something to celebrate. And then to Narissa's point, what are you doing? The data meetings are great. You have to have those. Those are the foundation. So.
To echo part of what Linda says is every year we sit and we listen to kind of a lot of, it starts with, well, we're trying. And you came in here with such a positive attitude, but I also like that you highlighted that there are celebrations hidden within the data. And I think that often gets missed when we have these meetings. We look at that really big piece of data and we're missing the strengths that Salisbury brings forward when we just look at that one average. So I really appreciate you bringing that forward. And to Narissa's point about the actions, I'm cheating because my children have been there, so I can attest that there is a lot of action going on, and I know you probably wrote like 60 pages. And Brian said no. And now you're regretting listening to Brian.
No.
And that's fair. You should. But I appreciate the I know you would have loved to give us 60 pages
we'd be
and
here
have a
till
whole
2
night.
a.m. Yeah.
So anyone not used to a meeting with Michael, he would come with all of it and not highlight any of it and just sort of read to you. But I can attest that there are a lot of things happening that are actionable and even could be put on data on paper very quickly. So I do want to highlight that. I know it's not here, but I can attest that at every grade level, there are things going, but that's like mixing. But I do want to say in here, if you look through, there are some actual lines in there. But if you don't, I guess that's what I was just seeing. I want to point out that I do.
Yeah.
It is seen. And if you kind of read through, and I think even in the budget, there's a few things where it kind of comes up again.
Yeah.
When you get to go back to your data.
Yes.
But I really appreciated bringing up how those small wins are there.
Yes,
Because I think
and-
that misses almost every year when we sit here.
Thank you. And I appreciate, in the spirit of lifelong learning, right, I appreciate the feedback. It's good information. So, and I apologize that that's not, clear enough because it's nice to hear that recognized, but there certainly are wonderful things happening at Salisbury Elementary with our staff, our students, our families, and I regret that it's not as reflected here as it could be. But I do appreciate the feedback. Certainly, I'm learning just as we all are, so.
This is just out of curiosity. Do
Yep.
you still have the stuff you deleted?
Yeah.
I mean, my
And I did not intend to throw Brian under the bus.
No.
I didn't know if I could ask for it.
Hey, I'll throw Brian under the bus. I understand where he's coming from, but I would 100% take 26 action items and say to you, I think this is too much and you need to pare it down, than sort of be stuck in this position where I'm like, I need more. I don't want to be saying that because I know you're doing it. I just need it documented. Like, I'd love to see you come back next month and say, this is the real, like, this is the thing that I'm putting in front of you. Because I just, like, I know, we know what's going on, right? We can see the changes happening. We hear it from families. Like, it's just not reflected here and it's kind of killing me.
Us, it's the community.
Yes, yep,
The community
absolutely. Yep.
that don't have children here need
Yep.
to see that. Anybody else?
I read it differently, and maybe it's because I'm reading with a lot of history and a lot of firsthand knowledge of what's happening. I don't think it's as lacking as it's sounding at the table, but we certainly can adjust it and come back. May not bring it back, but we can adjust it as these get posted, and
Yeah. And I think too, before we jump into the budget, and you've all, several of you have already mentioned this, but there's work to be done. Step one in that work is tied up in that vision and that overview. And how we began tonight, which is that all students, whether they are from Salisbury or they are from Newbury or they are from Rowley, can learn. And that is not something we are going to solve with the snap of a finger, but that is where we begin, is that all students can learn. And that's not to say we do not have the action steps to back that up with the ELA and math, but perhaps spent maybe too much time formalizing that to communicate that than really thinking about the nitty-gritty of, or formalizing on paper the nitty-gritty of how we're going to affect that change.
if I could just say one last thing. A lot of the way Michael just described it, a lot of that is hard to document on paper in a way that can be conveyed easily and positively, right? And so I think that's where this ended up in this language is there's a lot unsaid, and I think there's a purpose there. And I get the point of needing to say it, but I think the process of getting to the place of being able to say it freely, normally, routinely is the current journey. So I guess that's not to say it can't change and it can't be documented differently, but yeah.
So in terms of the budget, certainly as Nicole explained, the proposals are aligned with our intentions in terms of ELA and math and social emotional learning. And that executive summary does include that revised vision statement and overview. I do want to call your attention to the bottom of page 3, our projected enrollments. Something we are hoping to do is to retain our current number of classroom teachers for 2026 to 2027. Enrollment projections indicate that, following next year's 6th grade cohort, we will need 3 teachers at each grade level. So currently, our 5th grade is in 2. If we were to keep them in 2, that would mean the reduction of a classroom teacher. However, we would only need to reinstate that position the following school year. So when we think about wanting to build strong grade level teams that have familiarity not only with curriculum and grade level standards, but school culture and community, really retaining the talent that we have is a priority. So in our enrollments, I did want to call out, although, those class sizes in sixth grade next year are quite small, and those are without summer move-ins, which we always receive, we would like to plan for 3 sections at each grade level, for staffing stability and consistency, just because those are essential for sustained academic progress, and any reduction would only be temporary for 1 year, because all sections after that are in 3. When we look at our personnel budget requests, the major changes are what Nicole already introduced to you, and that's that we are very excited to welcome the REACH program to our school next year, and that will come with a special educator, a social worker, and 3 instructional assistants. So the majority of the increase that you see in terms of requested staffing levels stems from that move, so there really are no budget implications from moving that program from Pine Grove to Salisbury. But the 2 other personnel requests that we're making, and similar to what Nicole said, right, we know, looking at the budget landscape, that these things may not be possible, but we feel compelled to advocate for them, is that elementary co-teaching position. So we were, again, fortunate to be one of the schools selected for that 1-year extension that allowed us to fund a teaching position that we strategically assigned to grade levels based on data. That grant is expiring and there will be no more extensions, is what we've heard. And so we'd like to advocate for, retaining that position, but certainly, recognizing that that would require a change to the district fund rather than the grant. We have been recognized by DESE for effective use of grant funds, and they are actually planning a visit to Salisbury Elementary to come see some of the co-teaching practices that we've put into place. So, we've seen a lot of positive outcome from this position and this practice, and so, we would certainly want that to continue. Nicole already touched on the STEM teacher. All 3 of us will be including that in our budget proposals. So because she already went through the rationale and ours is the same, I will spare you the time. But we have included that as a personnel request as well. And then I'll echo what Nicole had shared about supplies and services, right? We've accounted for, both inflationary costs, but also the increase in price for instructional materials and subscriptions. There's cost escalation on consumables and equipment, software and licensing fees that have increased. And this is all, to maintain our current instructional tools. Program materials and subscriptions were adjusted to align with updated costs, working with our math and reading specialists to really identify, what we need in order to keep our students learning. And then otherwise, I did want to note a portion of the increase in our instructional technology supply line item was due to an increase in teacher requests for licenses for supplemental materials. So that did go up a bit more than I think is typical, just because teachers had come to me and advocated for some developmentally appropriate supplemental programs such as Happy Numbers, Happy Letters, some foundational fluency programs that are used at the primary levels. So overall, you can see the total non-personnel budget request impact goes up a little over $14,000. And then for the rest of the packet is the detailed line item breakdown.
And just to clarify, the
Yep.
error on
Yes.
my end was that on page 4, the correct number is 77.2 because we would only be adding that one extra teacher, the STEM teacher. The budget impact is the same. It's just we would be moving, one person is already employed by the district. It's just whether or not that salary carries over into the district budget rather than the grant.
So when the Department of Ed comes to visit Salisbury to see how well you're using the grants, are they giving you any grants?
I'll beg.
Did you tell them that they could only come if they came with grants? Go ahead.
Michael, I don't know if you can answer this, and if you can, it's fine, because it doesn't need to be answered tonight. But how many summer move-ins on average do you see? I know it's been 1 year, like you've actually
Yeah.
been there, but I don't know if you've looked at it just.
Yep. I can get the number for you because I don't have it off the top of my head, but we were probably around 15 to 20 summer move-ins last year. I could be That could be,
But like higher than 10?
yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
so not a small number.
yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
And that may be sticking out in my mind too, because several of our, we're looking at the sixth grade cohort there, and several of our move-ins last summer and that have continued through the year have been at the sixth grade level, so our class sizes have gone up in particularly at that grade level, so.
That was my question, to see if summer move-ins
Yeah.
have stayed all year.
We can definitely pull that data though, so you have that for your conversation when you're thinking things through.
Does anybody else have any?
I think this is actually a Rich question. The elementary co-teacher position that's already employed by the district, would we incur a reduction in force cost if that position is eliminated?
What do you mean by that?
Well,
As in like unemployment? or-
Yeah, well, if there is, yeah, there's usually costs associated, unfortunately, when, something like this ends and if we have to let the person go because we cannot absorb it into the budget and the grant does not continue. I just wanted to know if there is, unemployment, other costs associated with.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Usually.
it depends kind of at the end of the year of how things shake out, because just because we eliminate the position doesn't necessarily mean eliminating the person.
Okay.
Um,
I'm just trying to figure out how
Yeah.
to quantify it in the budget request, right? Because it's not the difference between $0 necessarily and $97,000. It's,
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
good.
can't
There are a
really
number
answer
of
that question.
non-renewals every single year,
Yep.
right? So this will be no different than that. We've
Okay.
never budgeted for unemployment in typical non-renewals. We've done it when it's a larger, we're cutting 10 teachers, 15 teachers, and we have to set aside because there's a larger pool.
Okay.
So this would be.
This
either-
individual doesn't have specialized, okay, thank you.
So we would treat this as $100,000 add or just budget neutral.
That makes sense, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. I'm happy to come back with more information if you'd like me to.
We'll
Just
talk. Thank you,
let-
Michael. I
let me know.
appreciate it.
Sorry, Brian, for the tire marks across your back.
I feel more like I'm the one who set you up.
While Patty's coming up here, Michael did mention flooring repairs at SES. We've centralized that in the district lines, so you can see it in there a little bit more, and that's just, we could talk more about that on Thursday.
So next up, Patty Hebert. I hope I didn't give you bad advice. So Patty Hebert is the principal at Newbury Elementary, her first time through here, so welcome, Patty. You've seen two now. It's your turn.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. Tonight I'm presenting the Newbury Elementary School Improvement Plan for 2026 through 29. This plan reflects our commitment to Triton's core values, respect, integrity, and excellence for all, and outlines the specific goals, strategies, and monitoring tools we'll use over the next 3 years to strengthen teaching, learning, and school culture. On slide 3, our school improvement plan is grounded in Triton's Portrait of a Learner. The POL outlines the competencies and dispositions we want all students to develop throughout their years in Triton. It serves as a constant guide for our work, both academically and socially, ensuring that we are building skills aligned to deeper learning outcomes, not just isolated performance measures. At Newbury Elementary, our school-based theme and vision are centered on creating a strong, supportive learning environment where students are challenged academically and supported socially and emotionally. A major part of this is NES Cares, our shared behavior and community expectations, cooperation, assertion, responsibility, empathy, and self-control. This framework supports both culture building and student readiness to learn. On slide 5, This provides an overview of our student enrollment by race and ethnicity for the 24-25 school year. We use this data as part of our equity planning to ensure that all students across all subgroups have access to strong instruction, a sense of belonging, and appropriate supports. This demographic lens helps us reflect on curriculum practices, student experience, and the effectiveness of school-wide systems. Slides 6 and 7 begins the review of progress towards our previous goals. Since I'm new to NES, I didn't develop last year's goals, but I'm grateful for the foundation that was built, and I've used this work and the data to inform the priorities for the 26 through 29 plan. One celebration from last year is that we strengthened our social emotional systems and behavior supports, including explicit self-regulation strategies such as stop and count to 5, deep breathing, and take a break. This is important because students can't learn at high levels if they're dysregulated. Another major celebration is our behavior data. There were 59 office-managed incidents, which is a decrease from 86 the year before. That reflects better proactive systems, more consistent adult responses, and stronger Tier 1 structures. At the same time, the data also points to areas we will need to strengthen. Nearly 47% of the incidents were physical contact, and we also continue to see social conflict. There were 12 bus reports, which tells us consistency of expectations needs continued attention. One of the biggest takeaways is that the behavior needs are concentrated. 3 students accounted for 62% of the referrals. That tells us we need strong Tier 1 expectations for all and stronger Tier 2 and 3 supports for students with intensive needs. Slide 8 reflects, Slide 8 reflects our writing goal work and the system behind it. We use benchmark writing prompts 3 times per year and score those using the district writing rubric and scoring guides, focusing specifically on idea development and standards English conventions. This approach supports consistency across classrooms and grade levels and allows us to monitor growth over time. We strengthened writing structures last year, but growth was inconsistent across grades, which is why writing is a continued SIP focus for 26 through 29. Slide 9 highlights the structures and support implementation, grade level meetings, data meetings, and instructional planning cycles. One key structure is our flex time. This provides daily time to deliver interventions and enrichment, allowing staff to respond to student needs with greater precision. These structures are essential because goals alone don't create change, systems do. Slide 10 provides a snapshot of our MCAS performance data. It allows us to identify patterns by grade and across performance categories, especially where we have strong outcomes and where we have students clustered in partially meeting or not meeting expectations. We use this data not only to set targets, but to focus our instructional priorities, especially in mathematics, where we have a clear opportunity for growth over the next 3 years. One celebration overall is that NES performs strongly in multiple areas, and in some grades we are significantly above state in meeting and exceeding. For example, grade 6 ELA shows 84% meeting and exceeding, and grade 6 math shows 75% meeting and exceeding. At the same time, MCAS also shows our key challenge. In math especially, we still have too many students scoring partially meeting. For example, grade 3 has 44% partially meeting, and grade 5 math has 48% partially meeting. This is why math is our primary MCAS outcome goal. On slide 11 is our Spring 25 iReady performance. We use iReady as an assessment tool to monitor progress and identify students who need targeted supports. The iReady data helps us respond much earlier than annual measures, informs intervention planning, and supports our MTSS structure. Alongside the academic data, we also track engagement indicators. For example, SQM measure 2C1, value of learning, captures how students view school and themselves as learners. This matters because when students value learning, they participate more consistently and achievement improves over time. Slide 12 transitions us into the 26-29 School Improvement Plan. The plan is designed to align with Triton's core values, vision, and conditions for success, and it centers around 3 important improvement goals. Slide 14 starts with our goals. Goal number 1 is our mathematics outcome goal. By June 2029, Newberry Elementary will increase the percentage of students in grades 3 to 6 who meet or exceed expectations on MCAS math by at least 10 percentage points, and reduce the percentage who partially meet or do not meet expectations by at least 10 percentage points. This goal reflects our commitment to stronger Tier 1 mathematics instruction and more coherent intervention structures so students gain both fluency and deep conceptual understanding. This goal is included because while many students are demonstrating growth, some remain below meeting expectations. And math achievement is a key equity indicator and foundational for future academic success. To meet this goal, the action steps are centered on strengthening consistency across grades, strengthening Tier 1 instruction, increasing intervention coherence, ensuring PLCs use data to inform instructional decisions. For teachers, this will look like using MCAS patterns and classroom assessment data to identify priority standards, using flex time to intentionally for reteaching and enrichment based on data. More consistent small group instruction with flexible regrouping. PLC time focused on student work, trends, and planned responses, not just discussions. For students, this will look like more consistent grade level expectations, increased math, reasoning, and problem solving, targeted support during flex and intervention blocks, and more opportunities for reteach cycles so gaps don't compound. Goal number 2 is our writing goal. By June of 2029, 80% of students in grades K to 6 will demonstrate at least 1 performance level of growth per year using the district writing scoring guides. This growth will be measured specifically in idea development and standard English conventions, using benchmark writing prompts and consistent scoring across grades. This goal was selected because writing supports performance across all content areas, and our benchmark data shows variability and inconsistent growth across grades. What does the action step mean? What will teachers do? To meet this goal, our action steps focus on building a consistent K-6 writing system, administer benchmark prompts 3 times per year, use calibrated scoring to strengthen reliability, use PLC time to analyze student writing and adjust instruction, increase vertical alignment so expectations build year to year. For teachers, this will mean common writing routines across classrooms, consistent use of district scoring guides, more frequent feedback cycles, including explicit revision and conventions work. For students, this will look like predictable writing expectations across grades, increased writing stamina and clarity, consistent structures such as modeling, exemplars, and editing routines, clearer feedback aligned to growth targets. Goal 3 focuses on student engagement, specifically through Triton's school quality measures. By June of 2029, Newberry Elementary will improve the value of learning domain, moving from a below growth rating to an approval rating. This goal matters because student engagement is a driver for academic success. Students achieve more when they're motivated, connected, and see learning as meaningful. This goal matters because engagement and emotional readiness are foundational for academic success. When students value learning and feel capable, they persist through challenges and participate more deeply in instruction. To meet this goal, our action steps focus on how engagement becomes visible in classrooms. We'll embed SEL within daily instruction, strengthen collaborative routines, increase authentic learning experiences, reinforce portrait of a learner roles and dispositions. For teachers, it looks like stronger morning meetings and SEL structures, more intentional engagement strategies, explicit language around perseverance and learner identity, student voice and participation routines. For students, it looks like a stronger sense of belonging and confidence as learners, increased curiosity and participation, improved attendance, motivation, and academic stamina, a clearer connection between effort, learning, and identity. Slide 17, no, excuse me. Yep, slide 17 includes action steps connected to implementation, particularly around strengthening communication with families. Family partnership is critical to attendance, routines, student engagement, and student success. We will continue to strengthen consistent communication through tools such as newsletters, classroom communication systems, and regular updates to support families as partners in learning. Finally, the last part of this, facility conditions matter because they impact student comfort, dignity, and readiness to learn. While we have made progress with many major projects such as the roof and HVAC Phase 1, we still have ongoing needs, including bathroom improvements, flooring, ceilings, and accessibility upgrades, and we'll continue communicating transparently with families as this work progresses. Finally, slide 18 reflects our school council membership and the formal sign-off process. I would like to publicly thank all members of our school council, Ms. Ginny King, Ms. Alyssa Diamond, Jacob Burns, Jess Decker, and Tom Farrell for being participants and collaborators in this plan, as well as all of our teachers at NES. In closing, the SIP reflects a coherent, multi-year plan to strengthen teaching and learning at Newberry Elementary. The plan is grounded in district vision, and the portrait of a learner reflects our school's CARES values and sets measurable targets in math achievement, writing growth, and student engagement through the value of learning. I'm proud of the work reflected in this plan and the progress we've already made strengthening systems and supports. This SIP gives us a clear roadmap for continued improvement in math, writing, and student engagement over the next 3 years. And I'll end by saying how excited I am to continue this work at Newberry. I feel incredibly fortunate to work alongside such fabulous teachers and staff, to serve such wonderful students, and to partner with such a strong and supportive NES community. Thank you for your time.
Does anybody have any questions?
Just looking at the math goal, some of these timelines are year 2, and that would be 27, 28, right? Can you talk to me about why that is?
Let me just pull that up.
Can I actually tack on to that and say, is there any chance you could talk about timelines overall? Because I think you're using that column a bit differently than what we've seen in the past, which I appreciate. But I'm a little unclear too. I mean, Paul's calling out year 2. I was wondering about that. Some of them are year 1, but don't have follow-ups, which you can tweak this every year. So I understand that. But also the annually, I don't know if that's an annual check-in on some of these, that they're being implemented properly.
Yes.
So if you could kind of take that as a question in a broader sense, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. So some of the things we're starting, being new to the community, I'm kind of learning the ins and outs and the structures that are already in place. So to make a lot of changes right away without having the supports, the professional development, the conversations with the team, we can't go that fast. So that's where you see some of the year 2 things, really talking about building our MTSS and what structures do we have in place. That's what I'm learning now. The annually, like the first one, analyze MCAS achievement and growth. That happens every year. So every year in the fall, we're looking at data, we're making plans for the year going forward. The next one, provide targeted interventions through MTSS Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports. Yes, this is happening, but the bigger piece will be a focus the following year with really paying attention to how the structures are set up, how is MTSS built across all grade levels, K to 6, how we're using different systems that are in place to help support our plans. Provide professional development time to improve math practices, small group instruction. Again, some of this will be happening right away, but I also need to be partnering with the district. What are some of the professional development plans and supports that we have going forward? And that's a conversation. I don't know if that will take place year 1, so I don't want to make that commitment that this is the professional development, but we will have a team that will be exploring different professional development goals for us and what are some of those systems that could help each year. Same thing with the observations and coaching cycles focused on mathematical rigor. This takes time to build. We need a team in place. We need training for a team. We need everyone to kind of come together. What is it what do the observations look like? And make sure that we're calibrated, that we're doing it the same way across all grade levels. So that also takes some time. It's getting all teachers on board as well. Currently, we don't have learning walks in place. It had been something years ago. I know I've talked with Dr. Bates about putting them back, but that takes time to build them as well. And that's where we would like our focus to be next year, building those systems, starting slow to go fast, but that'll happen over the next year.
If I could ask, I appreciate that answer. If I could ask another question, I'm just trying to understand goal 2. So my understanding, the way I'm reading this is, let's say that you have a student, and whatever level they happen to be at this year, next year you need them to be at least one level up, and the year after that another level up, and the year after that at least another level up. And if they don't make it in, say, year 3, they fall out of your 80%. Is that accurate?
So for our writing goal, 80% of students will demonstrate growth in one or more performance levels. So yes, we're going to look at both conventions and idea development. So on the rubric, it's all classified that way over the 3 benchmarks. So yes, we will be looking at where they are, benchmark 1, benchmark 2, and then ending in benchmark 3. So, sorry, let me classify. They're going to grow, 80% of our students every year will be meeting the benchmark. So every year, we're wanting to tackle this, 80% of our students.
Okay, so it's per year, not per
It's per
student.
year, yes.
All right,
My
thank you.
apologies. Yep.
I guess, can I just ask, how doable is that? That's one I don't honestly, we don't see this data all the time.
That's a great question. So this is our second year of having 3 common curriculum embedded benchmarks, but it's the first year that we've actually collected the data from everyone. Teachers have had that data themselves. So when I look at, like, just scan through classroom data right now, it's doable. Students are moving. I haven't looked at, like, school-wide data yet, or I haven't looked district-wide. But I think the goal of moving 1 performance level per year, I think is reasonable. Where it becomes a little bit trickier, and Patty and I talked about this too, is when you have a student who you know is making a lot of growth, and you can see that through their writing, but yet they don't, it's a 3-point rubric for conventions, or it's a 4-point rubric for ideas. So maybe they're moving from, like, a low 3 to a high 3, which isn't going to push them, but you still know they're growing. So I think that's just sort of part of the conversation, and the reason why we're not just looking at 1 data point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have anything else?
Ready for your budget?
All right. So our budget, so our 27, fiscal year 27 budget request book, and highlight, I'd like to highlight the key drivers: enrollment, staffing, and maintaining instructional supports aligned to our SIP. All right. On slide 3, the key driver is the projected enrollment. We are projecting K-6 enrollment rising from 379 to 391 students, requiring an increase from 22 to 23 classes. The biggest pressure point is grade 4, projected to increase from 49 to 66 students, which requires moving from 3 sections to 4. This is a proactive decision to protect class size, small group instruction, and learning outcomes. Slide 4 shows our staffing request summary. Overall, staffing increases from 85 to 87.5. The major increases are regular education staffing increasing from 22 to 24, guidance from 1.5 to 2, and health services from 1 to 2. These changes are tied to enrollment, student service needs, and student safety. On page 5, the rationale for the request for a grade 4 teacher is directly driven by projected enrollment. Adding this section prevents oversized class sizes and preserves differentiation and small group instruction. Same request as my other two colleagues, the STEM teacher. So I won't bore you with all of that, but we do have a fabulous maker space that's already ready and to go for this person. And then the third request is increasing the social worker from 0.5, another 0.5. We currently have 1.5 school counselor and a social worker. This limits access to student needs as student needs become more complex. This increase will strengthen Tier 2 and Tier 3 services. It'll improve flexibility during the day and support student readiness to learn. Currently, our school counselor sees about 42 students. That's in addition to participating in weekly clinical meetings, IEP meetings they need to be in, lunch bunch groups. There's a lot that happens during the day, and her schedule is jam-packed. Similar with our 0.5 social worker. She services about 20 students currently, and there are some that are still waiting. And then finally, the request for a certified nursing assistant position, that's a zero budget impact. This is a reclassification of a vacant special ed IA position that we're looking to make that change. On slide 7, the budget reflects an increase of about $9,000, a little over $9,000, which includes a correction of $2,600. There was a calculation error from fiscal year '26, plus the normal cost of escalation, the consumables, equipment, higher software, and licensing fees. That's all added in there as well. This increase maintains our current instructional resources. And then the next few slides, same thing, it's just the supplemental, the line-by-line accounting. You can see some of the materials. Not much has changed from the year before. We talked about the DIBELS, the major increase with that. All right. So overall, this budget is driven primarily by enrollment, targeted staffing to support student needs, and maintaining instructional resources aligned to our SIP goals. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions? No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. All right, so everyone's looking at me, so that concludes our program for this evening. We'll be back here tomorrow with middle school principal, high school principal, athletic director, to hear improvement plans and budgets for the middle school, high school, as well as budget for athletics.
I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Thank you for your time. And once again, it takes a village to do this work that we have. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice evening. Can I have a
Motion to adjourn?
motion to
We'll
adjourn?
make that. I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you.